Welcome to Keeping It Real, where we talk business, money, and mindset.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Keeping It Real podcast. And as always, I don't want to waste time. I want to get straight into the interview with our special guest today, Chase Dimond, who's the founder of Boundless Lab, which is an email marketing agency. And he's someone that I look up to and someone I study in the email marketing space, and someone I think you need to follow on Twitter if you're doing e-commerce. Just a legend when it comes to email marketing. But, I'm going to get him to introduce himself. So Chase, go ahead and briefly introduce yourself, brother.
Sweet, man. First off, thanks for having me. I appreciate the kind words. At a really quick high level, I run an email marketing agency. We have about 35 to 40 employees. We work with 70 e-commerce brands that do between 7 and 9 figures. And we're doing, millions and tens of millions of dollars every single month in email revenue for our clients. So excited to be here and ready to dive in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So talk to me about even like before e-commerce industry and before the email marketing industry. What were you doing before that?
So really long-winded, at 13 years old, was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, spent a year sick through lack of awareness of this disease. At 14 years old, I took it upon myself to learn guerrilla marketing to raise fundraising and awareness of this disease. After 2 years of dedicating my life to that, at 16, I became the youngest board member of this charity called the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. They do about $50 million a year in fundraising for Crohn's and colitis. So that was really cool. Forced me to grow up, got some great mentors. In college, I had to pay for my own tuition. My parents couldn't afford to send me where I went. They could only afford a portion of it. So I had to work. I worked 6, 8, 10 different jobs, internships, all within different realms of marketing. And that's kind of when I found my love of email. After I graduated college, I went to go work for an education technology company where I basically built a platform that connected students on college campuses with others in their classroom to make learning more collaborative. So essentially, if we went to the same university, we might be able to collaborate on some notes, some study guides, create in-person study groups, scaled that to hundreds of thousands of college students. I then went on to build an email travel series called The Discover, where we grew from 0 to 500,000 subscribers in 10 months. And really through my background, everything revolved around email and cold acquisition, as well as email and retention and conversion. So I've been doing specifically like email marketing for e-commerce for the past 3.5 years. So that's kind of my journey to where I am today.
And, through learning, and amazing story, by the way, just even seeing, I guess, your passions of, spreading the awareness of Crohn's disease, just going through what you've gone through. That's amazing. I didn't know about that, but that's really, really cool to hear. And even, I guess, all the other experiences that you went through. But my question to you is, when you were learning marketing and, when you're doing email, you had the skill of email marketing. How were you able to transition from, having the skill, knowing the skill, to transforming that into having a business, which you have now?
Yeah, I think the best way to learn is one of two things. And the ultimate thing comes down to getting like hands-on reps. So the first is, courses, YouTube, attending or listening to podcasts like this. I think you have to have some sense of what to do, right? You need a little bit of direction, but really the best and really the only way, whether you're going to know whether email or SMS or paid social is a good fit for you, and if you're a good fit for it, is to just throw yourself in it, right? Go get a job at an agency, start freelancing, start your own agency. So for me, I had all this knowledge and this stuff, in my mind and in theory, but it wasn't until I actually started applying that I figured out like, oh man, I'm really good at this. And I'm not really great at that, right? I'm really great at email marketing strategy and really great at execution. I'm really great at making money, but I'm not so great at email design, or, I'm pretty good at email copy, but I don't really enjoy it, right? So you have to really just throw yourself into the weeds to figure out, what you're good at and really get those reps.
That's an amazing answer. And I think, what you touched on, this is a perfect segue to a lot of things that people ask me when I put it out the tweet. A lot of people DM me as well. It's, a lot of questions. And a big thing I saw was what you just mentioned, which is, team building. When it comes to, hiring people, even hiring people from offshore countries, what are some systems or key things that you have in place that you think, separates you from someone else that might just be hiring just trying to hire someone to take care of their work for you?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think one, you have to figure out like your process, your system, your structure. So for us, we use Notion.so, Notion.so as our project management, right? So having some kind of central hub where people congregate, share, record things is really important. There's also things like Monday, Trello, Asana, right? So picking a project management tool, I think, is one. Two is making sure that you understand like what the goal is that you're trying to solve and the players that you need. So for us, we figured out that we need 5 people on every single client. We need a marketer, we need a designer, we need a copywriter, we need an account manager, and we need a developer, right? So then for us, we started building with a single, what we call pod. I think other people call them teams, pods, whatever they call them. We wanted to build a pod, right? And each pod could take on X number of clients, depending on how junior, how senior they are, and depending on like what plan they have with us, right? Depending on the number of emails per month, depends on how many clients someone could take on. So for us, right, we built the first pod. I was on it, my business partner was on it, and we just had a bunch of really good A players on it. And over time, as we grew and as we scaled, each of the members of the pod kind of branched off and started their own pods, right? And you kind of had to grow and fill those teams. So for us, like, we are obsessed with the quality of our service. Like, we will not do poor work. We just won't. We'll go above and beyond to make sure that the quality of our work is the best, right? It's the best or nothing at all, because we're doing it. It has to be the best. So we have processes and kind of things in place. Clients check on our work, team members check on our work. We have weekly calls with each department to review the work with kind of the seniors. So everything we do really instills that there's multiple people checking the work, making sure all the I's are dotted, the T's are dotted, right? Whatever that saying is. Just really making sure that we didn't miss anything. And again, we're not perfect. We definitely do miss things. But then we build systems around, well, we missed picking the wrong segment. Like, how the heck did that happen? Oh, well, there wasn't actually a review for the segment. There was only a review for the copy, the design, and the implementation, right? So we just we did it, and then we found the things that were broken, and then we patched them up, right? So the leaky buckets, we would go fill that, and then again, something else would leak and something else would break, right? And we've been doing this now for 3.5 years. So we're not perfect, but we've figured out a lot of the things and places where it's pretty easy to go wrong.
That's an amazing answer. And I love all the, I think this year as well, a huge focus for us has been systems and understanding how important systems actually are in growing your business and such. I'm learning something new right there, which is like, if when you have a mistake, instead of worrying about whatever the mistake is, thinking about, okay, what system do we have that can actually, solve this in the long run where we don't actually have this problem. But back to the team topic, which is just creating, because your team is like, it's almost like your soldiers, you're going to war with them, in the world of business. How are you ensuring that the people that you're working with is, they're staying efficient, and also they are up to date on the latest, maybe email knowledge or whatever they need to know for the clients?
Yeah, in terms of the knowledge piece, like, I am creating a lot of content, right? So I submit the content to my team first. So my courses, my podcasts, my YouTube videos, my newsletter, right? Like, my team gets access to that content, so that way they can stay up to speed. And a lot of the content we're creating also, it's a two-way street. I'm pushing content to my team and they're pushing content to me, right? So there's this back and forth flow of information to make sure that we're all aligned. That's one. Two, we've been one of Klaviyo's top partners for a while, so we get access to typically things before it's rolled out publicly. So in alpha and beta, they're asking for our opinions and our feedback, and we're sharing with them a lot of our opinion on what we want to see. So I think that's also been a really good and kind of unique competitive advantage of ours. It's just the fact that we have access to tools and things early. And then outside of that, right, like, if I speak at AdWorld, or if my partner Nick speaks at an event, we're giving our team access to those things. So there's more than enough ways for our team to kind of consume the knowledge. And we're really vetting the people at the end of the day from the beginning. We're doing pretty thorough interviews. We're doing pretty thorough testing to make sure we only let the right people in. It's not perfect, right? It's not a fail-safe system, but a lot of times, 9 out of 10 times, we're picking the right people that have, they're hungry, right? They have like this go-getter and this go-giver mindset. They want more. They're very self-sufficient. They're very autonomous. They're very independent, right? So I think at the very beginning, that's really what sets the tone, is in the hiring and in the onboarding, setting the expectation, making sure that you have alignment. Because if you don't have that up front, it's going to be way harder once they're in the groove to kind of course correct.
How important do you think like team culture is in a team aspect where, especially in a business like ours, like a team, where the team has to be involved in, I guess, like a team has to work together for the process. How important would you say team culture is?
I think it's everything, especially with, working remotely and working online. It's easy to feel, distant and isolated, right? It's really easy to feel, lonely. So for us, I think culture is that thing that every single Monday morning when someone wakes up, they don't dread coming to work. Every single Monday morning, we have an all hands where we have 40, 50, 60 people, depending on the week, depending on the time. Certain people in certain countries can make it, other people can't, but we normally have at least 40 people, 45 people on these calls. And every single person goes through and they share what they're grateful for. They share, so it's really about connecting. So that's the whole company. And then individually, each team has their own weekly sync. So I think people look forward to those. Our Slack channels are always, going off, where people are sharing photos and videos and memes. So think having like this open policy, this open communication across, it doesn't matter if you're the business owner, it doesn't matter if you're an intern, right? Everyone has the same level of respect. Everyone has the same access to information. Everyone has the same say, right? So I think having a culture that's really level, and again, like I'm one of the owners, I'm one of the partners, but I don't feel like I'm better than anyone else. In reality, I feel like I'm learning from my people more than they're probably learning from me at this point, right? So when you hire a good team, that really allows everyone to grow with them.
That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's amazing. It's important for people that are listening to hear about the importance of team culture, just not only from me, but even from you, because I think that's something I started putting a big focus on last year, and I've seen a huge increase. And the biggest thing I say is that that's the difference between you paying someone to do the work and them, being part of your team, being part of your mission and who you are and what you're trying to do. So definitely awesome that you shared that. You've mentioned your partner multiple times, and a lot of people that listen to this podcast, these are usually entrepreneurs that do things on their own. I kind of want to hear your perspective, a different perspective on, going, because if I'm not mistaken, you partnered up with another agency with your agency, right? So just, I guess, hearing the process from, being an agency owner to now, being an agency partner, what was that process like? And I guess just talking about the difference in it and, how if it's been beneficial for you and, I guess just the perspective of having partners.
Yeah. So, I mean, even before like this merger that we did about a year ago, I did have a business partner. So we have a couple partners now at the agency that is more than just email at this point. But I've always done things with partners. I've always found people that have skill sets that are kind of complementary to mine. I know what I'm really good at and I know what I'm poor at. I think that's really important, right? Is being able to admit the things that you're not good at. Like for me, I hate anything that's back office. That's things like accounting, legal, finance, paying our team, making sure that we have all the right, this, that, or the other in place. Like, I don't enjoy that. I really love teaching. I really love building. I really love, being at the forefront. I love working with clients. I love hiring. Like those are the things that I think I'm uniquely qualified and good at. And I'm really bad at the back office stuff, right? So I've always found team members and partners that are good at the things either A, I'm bad at, or B, I just frankly don't have the patience or the will or the want to do. So I had a partner initially, and then we ended up having like a junior partner kind of on the team. And then, now we merged with a paid social company to do Facebook and Instagram advertising. We also have a studio. So now there's just more partners, which I think is really great because we have like 50 or 60 employees. So there's a lot of people, there's a lot going on. We have a lot of really ambitious goals for this year and the future goals. We're about to build and launch our own first kind of internal e-commerce brand. We're working on some SaaS tools and data tools, right? And if it was me alone, I wouldn't be able to carry on the vision and kind of the execution for all these different things that I want to accomplish. So by coming together, and while I have a little bit smaller of a piece of the pie than I would if I was doing it alone, I got to build something that's a lot greater than myself and doesn't need me to kind of survive.
That's awesome. And that makes a lot of sense. As even recently, I brought in partners and I've seen a huge, boost in, productivity and all in, like you said, being self-aware of your strength and your weaknesses and, delegating or creating systems to make sure that your weaknesses are still getting dealt with while you are focusing on what you're good at. Now I want to kind of shift this more towards personal branding because I think you are someone who's doing it like amazingly. First, you've already touched on content, the importance of it, but talk to me more about, growing your personal brand and really utilizing content to do so.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, for me, I've been doing this now for 6 years. I've been publishing some form of content, and every year I just go a little bit harder and a little bit harder, and I spend more time and more money and whatnot on it. I think me, like at the end of the day, like content and personal brand is really what set me up for success, right? And I think the reason that I've been successful is the fact that like everything that I do is legit and authentic and real, right? I'm not trying to hold anything back. Like anything that you've asked me, hopefully I've answered it, and not held anything back. Like, I think for me, like, I don't see agencies like technically, right? Like we could be competitors. I think people would see it as that, but I don't really see anyone as competition, and not in the fact that no one can beat us, but the fact that there's so much to go around. And if you beat us, then there's a reason you're beating us. And if we beat you, there's a reason we're beating you, right? So I've always been about giving, my entire playbook. And at the end of the day, what separates who's going to win versus lose is who's going to execute, right? And I know I'm going to execute. I know you're going to execute. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are going to be the ones that are executing, right? So we're all going to be able to win together. So I think having allies is actually what allows you to win and succeed. So for me, I think the content I've created over the years has been super high quality and very consistent. I show up every single day. Doesn't matter what I did yesterday. Doesn't matter what I did the day before. Doesn't matter what I did a year ago. Every day I wake up and I have a new slate and a clean slate, and I want to provide value. Every interview, every piece of content I create is like, I'm asking myself, why am I creating this, right? And at the end of the day, I'm creating this to add value. So for me, creating high quality, consistent content over time is really what's allowed me to succeed. And again, I've been doing this for 6 years, and people finally just started finding out about me in the past 1 or 2 years. So it also requires a lot of patience.
Right. And I got to say, you've always been helpful to me and even all the other people I know that, maybe personally DM you, whether it be a question asking for some kind of like specific problems. So props to you. And he's not lying. He's always dropping value. We even did a thing. This is funny. You're going to laugh at this. We even did a thing where we integrated your Twitter to one of our Slack channels, where we have a Slack channel called Chase's Tweets, because they're that valuable. I can't make this up.
I appreciate that so much. These are the things that no one ever shares, right? Like I would like to think people are sharing and taking advantage of the tweets, and that's really why I do it. But it's really humbling and cool to see, someone else in the space that actually does that. So thank you.
For sure. And I guess just to add on to that, like, how are you separating, I guess, the workflow from, even though it's the same thing, it's still emails, but, your personal brand, having a course, it's a business in itself, and your agency is a business in itself. How do you make sure, you have enough time to do both? Are you compartmentalizing? Are you doing any kind of like, different things to make sure that, okay, you're not just because you're taking on this, you're not, getting behind on the other project and stuff?
Yeah. So for me, like with the newsletter, the social, the courses, like they're all related to the agency. Like the agency is my main focus. That's the main thing that I do. First and foremost, I'm a practitioner. I'm not like a course instructor, right? I think that like distinction is really important to me. Like I don't ever want to be seen as just a course creator. Most of my time and most of my revenue, most of my income comes from, my agency, right? And this has been something that's really important to me, and something that, we have 50 or 60 people. So that's a lot of people that depend on me. Whereas on the course and the personal brand stuff, it's just me, right? So I'd rather let myself down than other people down, just because I have, 50 or 60 families, right? There's 50 or 60 people that are relying on us to succeed. So I have to really be all in there. But I found that like by being all in there, the things that I'm doing day in and day out allow me to create the content. Like if I wasn't doing the things on the agency, I wouldn't have anything to say, right? So they really do feed each other. And one of the byproducts of like a personal brand that I didn't realize until recently is when you build a really strong personal brand, people come to you, right? Whether that's clients or even just as important or more importantly, that's team members. I've had a lot of people over the past 6 months come join our team specifically because mine or one of my partners or someone else is in the agency's personal brand, right? And that's a really, really important distinction. And I never realized that was going to be a byproduct. So long-winded, I think they're all related, and I have resources and I have teams, and I've been able to create kind of like my dream job at the agency, where my whole goal really is content creation, teaching, training, recruiting, partnerships, right? Like that really is my goal now, and really is my role. It's not something that was easy. It's taken me, a long time to get to this place where we have really good team members. We've got really good systems in place. It's pretty easy for me to check in and then check out in terms of the things that I need to get done. And I'm always accessible, right? Whether it's someone random that's not on my team hitting me up or someone on my team, I'm very quick to reply. I'm very quick to, give a thoughtful answer and really quick to jump on call. So I think just being very efficient through systems and people has allowed me to do all of these things. And frankly, I spent a lot of time creating content, more time than I probably want to admit. So I don't have it down to a T, but I enjoy it.
Awesome. That is truly awesome. I want to kind of shift more again, like I said, towards you as a business owner now, talking about, when you first started, right? Certain obstacles that you went through. If you could share any that you thought were, key moments like that look like failures or obstacles, but actually turned out to be, positive in the long run and help you learn and build your business. If you don't mind, would you be able to share any failures that you would say helped you?
I mean, dude, I have so many failures. I wouldn't even know like where to start. One that comes to mind is like when we were starting out, it was just myself and a partner. We were doing all of the work. And in hindsight, right, like the work that you first do when you first start is like really atrocious and terrible compared to like where you are, in the future, at least if you're making progress and whatnot. So when I look back at our work back then, like it's embarrassing to see that like we were proud of what we were doing then. And I'm sure in a couple of years, right? Like even though I think that the work that we do right now is, top in class and best in class, in a couple of years, I'll probably look back and be like, oh man, we've come such a long way, right? And that growth is really important. So I think just looking back to like the early days of like, wow, I don't know how I got any clients or why people let me do the work that I did. But I think the key there for me was always being transparent, like in the early days. And even now, like I always err on being overly transparent. I would tell clients like, hey, I've never done this before. I don't know really what I'm doing. I'm willing to work hard. I'm going to be showing up every single day and putting in the hours. Just give me a chance, right? So I think, in hindsight, by being super transparent and letting people know and not hiding the fact that I'm fresh and new, allowed me, and afforded me the ability to make mistakes. I think that's really important. One other thing that kind of happened that was kind of tough for us was we tried hiring an employee. We didn't really have like any legal documentation or any agreements in place. And as soon as we brought this girl in, she tried taking all of our clients, and we didn't have like any way to like go after her or protect ourselves because we didn't really have any agreements. So I think for us, like being cheap and not wanting to invest in a lawyer and kind of the proper documentation or even putting together ourselves that seems semi-legitimate, I think it could have cost us, our business. Thankfully, we had decent enough relationships with the clients where they told us and we were able to kind of move past it. But those are kind of the things that come to mind. I mean, the biggest challenge for us today is hiring, right? Like we have 35 or 40 people on the email team. There's about 50 to 60 people in the agency. And we have like a 2 or 3 month wait list right now for our services on email because we can't keep up with the demand. And granted, that's a really fortunate problem to have. I understand that, but it's still an issue because we have a lot of people that we want to work with that we can't work with. Like I have some dream brands that I would love to work with that we've had to pass on because we don't have the infrastructure to support it. So hiring is always a challenge. It doesn't matter what size you are, who you are, like finding good people and building them up and allowing them to succeed is challenging. And we're really being thoughtful with her growth. Like, sure, we could have probably 2 or 3x number of clients and team members right now, but that's not sustainable. So everything that we're focused on is really focused on long-term sustainable growth. So I think that's also a really important mindset frame for people is like, focus on how do you get to where you want to be in 6 months, a year, in 3 years, and 5 years. It doesn't have to be perfect today, but like have the right intentions. I
love that. I think long-term thinking is very important. And this goes like perfectly into something that I kind of want you to touch on because, I love to bring in a bunch of entrepreneurs and just hear their perspective on this and also share it to, I think, people that are just starting out, as I feel like when you just start out, you are prone to making a lot of like simple mistakes. Like for example, right? I feel like when you first start, let's say getting clients, making money, you might be more inclined to, like you said, maybe invest more in your personal life rather than cheap out, like you said, and not reinvest back into business. Even we're talking about legal docs and such. So I would love for you to kind of hear your perspective on, reinvesting back into your business, the importance of that for, long-term growth.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we've done the entire thing. Like in the beginning, we're taking all the money out of the business. And we're like, well, shoot, now we can't hire people because we have no cash and we don't want to put money back into the business, right? So I think if you do things the right way early, it really sets you up for success. I think if we had done all the right things the first time around, it would probably be night and day different to where we are. Granted, I mean, we run a really solid mid 7-figure agency. So don't get me wrong, I'm very fortunate about that. But I think we could be an 8-figure agency had we done the right things and really followed the right steps. But when you're starting out and you don't know what you don't know, it's challenging, right? And who knows, we'll probably make similar mistakes again in the future. We might not. So for us now, every single month, we set aside a certain percentage of our income into the bank account for growth. And growth looks like team members being able to get clients gifts, being able to do nice things for the team, being able to invest into any, personal projects or kind of side projects, right? So I mentioned we're launching like an internal e-commerce brand. Like we're funding that, mainly through the agency and also through some personal stuff and whatnot. And we're going to start other things, right? And we're going to fund it either through the business or outside the business. Who knows? So I think by having enough cash in the bank and being a little bit less, I don't want to say greedy, but taking a little bit less off the table in the beginning, take enough obviously to have some kind of comfortability to pay the bills, don't be struggling, but also make sure that you're saving a percentage every single month for growth. The more that you have in your bank when you're trying to execute certain decisions, the easier, the less stress it's going to be.
I agree. And thank you for sharing that. And I think that is one of the most important things. And I think is one of the biggest mistakes I made early on as well. And the point that you made that really stuck with me is like, if you start doing things right from the early stages, long term, I guess you'll be happy, like that you did that early on. So that's perfect. And these are some of the last questions I'm going to ask you, and I want to touch more on the personal life of things. And this is actually one of my team members, told me, or one of my partners asked me to ask you this, which is disconnecting your personal life from your business life, because you are a family man, because you're always sharing your personal life on Twitter as well. But how do you make sure, your business side is not consuming your personal life as well? Because I feel like some entrepreneurs might have a thing where, business just that's all in their mind. Even when they're with their family, they're stressing about clients or work or whatever. Just wanted to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, look, like work-life balance it's really challenging. I'm not going to like sugarcoat it. It's tough. Up until the point, so my daughter's about 13 months old, so she's a little over a year. Prior to that, like when my wife and I first got married and even first started dating, like I would work 7 days a week, 12, 14, 16-hour days, right? So in my early and mid 20s, like I grinded. Like I really had this long-term vision of being able to be a dad that's super involved and a husband that's super involved and a brother, a sibling, right? Like whatever my relationship is to people I want to spend time with. I had this vision of really wanting to be super present. And I didn't think, I'm 28 right now, I didn't think it was going to happen like in my 20s. I thought this was something that would maybe set myself up for my 30s or my 40s. But I've been able to fortunately really kind of give time and attention to both when time and attention is needed. So I just have a really strict regimen where, I don't take calls before a certain time in the morning. So from, whenever my daughter wakes up, which is typically 6 or 6:30, I'll normally hang out with her from, 6:30 till 8 a.m. I won't take calls, right? Sometimes I'll respond to messages here and there if she's doing something else, but I won't hop on any calls. And I don't take any calls after 4 p.m. my time. So you can hop on a call with me from 8 to 4. I typically schedule like a half hour just to hang out with my wife and my daughter, have lunch. And then, after my daughter goes to bed, I'll start checking messages and whatnot and respond here and there. So 8 to 4, I'm very focused. And then outside of those windows and on weekends, I'm pretty much offline. If someone needs something that's super urgent, I'll make an exception. But 9 out of 10 times, like it doesn't really matter what it is, I'm out.
Would you say you have like a set daily routine that you follow every day to make sure, ensure that work-life balance?
Yeah, some like before 8 a.m., don't take calls. I normally hang out with my daughter, watch my daughter, let my wife sleep in a little bit. During the work day, I try not to stack more calls than like 4 to 5, maybe 6 calls a day. I don't normally do more than that. Otherwise, my brain is fried and just the quality of my conversation really diminishes. So I try to make sure that I have less calls, but really thorough and thoughtful calls and really being sharp. Mm-hmm. And then after work, we go on a walk with my daughter, we make dinner, we do the dishes, we put her to bed, we read to her, right? We do that whole thing. And then typically, my wife and I will kind of hang out, we'll maybe check a couple of messages, we'll watch some TV, we'll just try to hang out, disconnect, sit by the fireplace, something like that.
For sure. And my last question, this is a question I like to ask every guest at the end. And this is, how has your perspective on money changed from before, let's say when you first started your business, when you're still working a job to now, where you've had your success with your course business, with your agency? How has the perspective shifted when it comes to, how you look at money?
That's a good question. I think for me, right, like I really value freedom and I really value time over money. And before, I think I always wanted money and always chased money. I think there's a certain level, and for every person it's different, right? For one person, making $100,000 a year might be life-changing. For another person, it might be $500,000 or $1 million, right? Like whatever that number is, everyone has their own number. So for me, I think I've met close to that number, for the past couple of years. That, an extra 50K or 100K, like, a couple of years ago would have been like, like that would have been everything to me, right? Like that would have changed my life. And now I'd rather have like my freedom and my time versus making an extra like 50 or 100K. So I think for every single person, they have different perspectives and every single person has success, and success looks different to them at different stages in time. I hate when people compare themselves to me or compare themselves to others. You're going to lose every single time, right? When you start comparing yourself, that means you're trying to make it a competition. And none of this really is a competition. I think when you're happy with your own growth and you're happy with your life and you're happy with your progress, I think that to me is really what I've shifted from, right? Is like, I see my friends and I'm like, oh my God, they're making so much more money. But when you talk to them, right, if they're not happy, if they're not spending time with their family, you just had to figure out what you value. And I figured out, when I had my daughter literally at the hospital when she was born, I was like, wow, my whole mindset around family and everything has shifted and changed, where I'd rather have more time, right? Like at the end of the day, we're all going to die. When we're dying, we're not going to say, I wish I had more money, right? We're going to say, I wish I lived more. I wish I had better experiences. I wish I had better relationships, right? So I think for a lot of people, they figure that out when it's too late. I'm trying to really be kind of mindful of figuring it out and taking advantage of it, today.
I think that's the perfect answer to, end the podcast on. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Before we go ahead and share, all your socials where people can reach you. I'm going to put all the links below to his course. I would say definitely go check it out. Definitely follow him on Twitter. Like I said, we love him that much that he's on our Slack channel every day. So definitely go do that. But any last words before we go, Chase?
No, man, I appreciate you having me. Yeah, shoot me a follow on Twitter. It's ecom Chase Dimond, no A in Dimond. I have a link in my Twitter bio that has some of the other links. If you want to drop those, great. Tons of free game and value on Twitter and YouTube and podcasts. So yeah, appreciate you having me. This was fantastic. And hopefully those that are listening enjoyed this as well.
Thank you again for coming. Thank you again for listening, guys. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. That is it for this episode of Keeping It Real, everybody. And if you guys did enjoy this episode, I just ask for a small favor, and that is to share this with someone that would benefit from this podcast, as I really want to grow this community and this podcast through word of mouth, right? From you guys sharing it or telling someone to mess with this podcast or listen to this podcast or posting us on Instagram. And by the way, guys, if you do post us on Instagram, please use the hashtag keeping it real and tag me at SplashmanPB, just so I can see it, just so I can, stay connected with the family and interact with some of you guys. But yeah, like I said, if you guys want to keep in touch with me, my Instagram is at SplashmanPB. If you guys want to check out my YouTube, where I drop amazing content and amazing value as well, just search my name, Parikshit Basnet, and my channel will appear. But anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.